I've waited over 12 hours to make this video in the hope of calming down, but I haven't. After the Galatasaray defeat, I suggested that the Spurs fan base needed to chill out and not get so stressed about it. Well, today I feel the opposite. Tottenham's ability to ruin everything from a position of opportunity is unrivaled. It's unmatched. Poor old Ange Postecoglou, who, by the way, isn't devoid of blame himself, but he's trying to change the mentality from the top to the bottom of this football club. But the DNA of the past decades just keeps rearing its ugly head. A chance to go third falls by the wayside, and Manchester City away next. And of course, between that, an international break where we just have to hate everything. Yes, it's a project and we must remain patient, but by God, it's hard sometimes. I'll be going into the things that I feel we need to change at the club to get back to the heights of the peak Pochettino era in today's episode of the Spurred On podcast. Guys, thank you for watching and listening on such another difficult day for Spurs. Please do press that like button. Please do subscribe to the channel for daily Tottenham Hotspur content if you're not already a subscriber. I really value all of your support these days. They are difficult. I know it's hard. A lot of you might be thinking, Barnaby, how can you be so reactionary? Like you said, you told us to chill out. I actually told you to chill the F out after the Galatasaray game. But I'm fed up. I'm so fed up with these moments where we have the chance to change the narrative of Tottenham Hotspur. The opportunity to go third, to go above Arsenal Football Club, the team who are deemed to be the title challengers, and to show them that actually we're not that far away. But instead, the players just limply rock up to a home game against Ipswich. Just the expectancy is so huge that they just kind of think it'll be easy to roll another Premier League team over. And that is just a horrible watch. Really horrible. Anyway, like I said, I'm going to go into the things that I think are problematic and that really need to change. And I just mentioned the word expectancy, didn't I? And I mentioned it in terms of, I think, the players and the complacency when they rock up to games like that, to Selhurst Park against Crystal Palace, to the second half against Brighton, even to the Coventry game where we deserved to get rolled over by a championship team as well. But I also want to talk a little bit, and this is a tough one, but I want to talk a little bit about fans' expectancy, and specifically in this case, at the home ground, at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. I was a season ticket holder there for the first couple of years at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. I think I was paying £1,800 or £2,000 for season tickets in the 1882 club. That was the only way I could get in because I was too far down on the waiting list. And I can say this having been a season ticket holder at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and I don't think things have changed yet. There is absolutely no chance that we have of making that ground a fortress unless the fans who go there every week turn up each week with the same attitude that they had against Manchester City in the Carabao Cup, or against Manchester City in the Champions League, that game, when we beat them 1-0 in the quarter-final first leg, and I was there, and it was absolutely raucous. It was intimidating. It really was absolutely intimidating. But what happens at the stadium is, in the games where we're expected to win, where the expectancy is high, there is complacency in the stands as well. There just is. I hate to say it, but there is. And we're now currently kind of in the zone at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium that Arsenal were at the Emirates for the kind of back end of the Arsene Wenger years. No atmosphere, an expectancy, and then when it doesn't happen, boos. We saw boos again at halftime yesterday, didn't we? Now, I'm not going to suggest that the players don't have a huge part to play in driving the fans on, in showing them that they've got something to cheer about and something to get behind the team with. I agree with that, but there has to be a way that, listen, this whole stadium has been designed with atmosphere in mind. It's supposed to have the best acoustics of any stadium in the whole world. And we've got to make it intimidating for clubs like Ipswich in the same way that we do for clubs like Arsenal. Like when Arsenal came and we did them 3-0 because the atmosphere was so raucous in the back end of the Conte years. But we don't. There's expectancy. There's just like, yeah, we're going to roll this team over. The fans need to make an effort too. That's what I'm saying. Now, I hate to kind of go back to what's happened at Arsenal, but there's been a thing in the last kind of 5, 6, 7 years at Arsenal, hasn't there? The Arsenal Ultras. And it's a bit embarrassing from the outside. But basically, the idea is kind of right, which is they get a group of people all together and make sure that they're making noise the whole time. I mean, how much could we learn from that Galatasaray game where all of the fans there were just bouncing the entire match for an hour before the game, for an hour after the game, and all throughout? They didn't sit on the seats, they're bouncing. It's not a corporate bowl at Galatasaray, and I'm not saying that the Tottenham Stadium is. We have the opportunity. It's been designed in the right way. But to go back to that Arsenal Ultras idea, even though it's embarrassing that they wear kind of, balaclavas and have black flags and stuff like that, I think the idea is kind of right. Like, we need to find a way to make sure there is noise all the time to make it difficult for opponents. And I'm not saying that's why we lost. It's not. But it doesn't help. And we were 2-0 down before we even got started in that game yesterday. And sure, things could have been different if Brennan Johnson had put away that chance in the first couple of minutes. But I think the fans, they need to play their part as well. That's what I'm going to say. And I only feel able to say that because I was a season ticket holder there for a couple of years. Unfortunately, I then couldn't afford it anymore. And now, obviously, I'm making content on match days. But if I was there, I'd be screaming the same things. I've been there actually since, and I have screamed the same things. There's a lot of negativity in that fan base at home. They're great fans, don't get me wrong, they really are. But when it slightly turns, it's not a great place to be. I read actually someone on Twitter yesterday saying they had to leave at half time because there was a man standing a couple of rows behind them who was just shouting and screaming such abuse and such obscenities towards the Tottenham team that they had to leave and take their son with them, who's 11 years old, because he was just intimidated and wasn't enjoying it. And that's the wrong kind of support. I'm talking about positive support. But like I said, of course, the players have to get the fans up for it. And there was just such a lack of desire yesterday. Allowing an opponent at the bottom of the league who are fighting for their lives to outrun you and outfight you and outplay you even, especially in that first half. We were outplayed, let alone outfought and outrun. And that, I'm sure, is why Ange Postecoglou, and we'll get into his quotes later on in the episode, but why Ange Postecoglou came out and said, this is on me, like, it's my responsibility, because I think he absolutely ripped into them yesterday. I think probably like never before he ripped them a new one in the dressing room afterwards, but he knew that by doing that he couldn't then go and throw them under the bus in the press as well. So in the press he took responsibility totally himself, said that the inconsistency is down to him and he has to find a way. But I think some careers were put on the line maybe in the dressing room afterwards. I really hope so, because too many players, and especially before these international breaks, are just playing 6 out of 10 effort, not wanting to get injured, thinking about Argentina in Christian Romero's case. And as I said yesterday on the We Are Tottenham TV watch-along before the game, I feared that Romero had kind of insisted he was okay to play because he wanted to go off to Argentina to play in the international games. He was not fit to play. He was absolutely woefully out of form yesterday. Form's the wrong word, just out of shape. I don't know if you saw when the camera kept kind of going to him in a close-up, he looked white as a sheet. He looked like ill. I don't know if that's playing through the pain of that toe injury he's got, or whether maybe he'd taken a pain-killing injection. It didn't suit him, didn't work with him. He shouldn't have played. He really shouldn't have played. Anyway, I'll get to that. Another thing that I just want to talk about in terms of Ange, he's determined to play in this beautiful, idealistic way. I get that, and that is the DNA of the club from years ago. To dare is to do, etc., etc. And I think that marries up with what we all want. I get that. I don't have a problem with that. But the problem is when we start playing against teams who are then snapping into 50-50 tackles much harder than us, and who kind of are more professional than us in terms of like wasting time and winning bitty fouls and making the game really scrappy. There's a slight disconnect there, isn't there? Because it's all well and good just wanting everything to be idealistically beautiful and perfect and what have you. But does that then allow the team to have the same intensity in terms of the physicality as teams like Ipswich had yesterday, as teams like Crystal Palace had? I'm not sure it does. There needs to be a little bit more muzzle in there. There needs to be a little more dirt, a little more grit, a little bit more professionalism. Someone like Rodrigo Bentancur and Christian Romero, they have to know, I think, when to say to the team, all right, it's all well and good being beautiful and doing everything this idealistically beautiful way, but sometimes you've got to scrap as well. You've got to fight, and you've got to put the pressure on the opposition, get in their faces. And a game like that is a perfect example. It didn't start well, so at some point someone has to just go in and go, listen, lads, we've got to roll up our sleeves here and scrap for it and fight, get some reducers in. It didn't happen, and as a result, we lost the game. We didn't listen. It's all well and good that Ipswich in the second half, they just whacked the ball long the whole game. They didn't play any football in the whole second half, sorry. But we didn't get in behind them, really. The only chance I can properly think of was obviously Solanke's in the last couple of minutes, and that came from a bit of a lucky ricochet. Obviously, he had the disallowed goal, which was from a corner. The goal was from a corner. There needs to be ways that when we're playing against a flat back five, we get right in their faces and we say, we're going to make this really difficult for you. And we did not do that yesterday, and we need to find a way around it, because other teams, other managers are going to show all their players when they're coming up against Spurs, home or away, that Crystal Palace game and that Ipswich game, say this is how to beat this lot. They haven't got the experience yet. They haven't got the nous to get through these kind of games. Next thing I want to talk about is how we need a game changer. We need someone who can pull us out of the mire in games like these. Harry Kane did it for us for years. And I think the next signing that we make, I know that we're all about buying young, exciting talent who can play a bit now, but also in the future. People like Gray, people like Bergvall, I get that. But we also need someone who can come straight into the first team, who is a game changer, who when things aren't going perfectly right, can do something a bit different. And I think Eberechi Eze was that player. I think they wanted that player. I think they planned to get him in. I think Eze thought he was coming to Spurs. And then in the end, the Elise deal happened for Palace. And then Richarlison didn't leave Spurs, and so the money wasn't quite there. But we need someone who can do things a bit different, who opposition players don't know whether he's going to go left or right, or whether he's going to shoot or shape to shoot and play in a little through ball in behind. We need somebody like that. Kulusevski's having a great season, but he's not that. He's a worker bee. He's a very technically gifted and brilliant worker bee with a great cross on him and a great finish. But you know what he's going to do. If he's on the right, he's going to cut inside. If he's in the middle, he's going to play a through ball, or he's going to have a shot. We need someone who can do kind of right or left. Sonny's kind of the same. You know what you're going to get from Sonny. He's an elite finisher. He's a great presser. He's a brilliant footballer. But you know if he's cutting in from the left, he's going to go into his right foot and try and hit it into the top left-hand corner. You know if he's in behind, he's going to get in behind because he's on the shoulder and he's trying to get a one-on-one. We don't have somebody who can offer that something a little bit different. And James Maddison obviously isn't really getting much of a kick at the moment. He's not impressing Ange Postecoglou. But he's not a man who's going to beat a player with a bit of skill, really, and a bit of pace. He's more like a creator, an Eriksen, a through ball merchant, a crosser, a free kick taker, a good finisher. We need just something a bit different, a bit of pace and a bit of trickery. And I hope that maybe they think about maybe breaking the bank a bit in January to get someone like that in. Obviously, experience tells us that that is not that likely, but I would love that to happen. I mentioned Romero already, and I've just put here on my notes, international break-itis. I mean, I almost don't want to talk about it anymore, but the last 5 international breaks we've lost just before, and it's a horror show. Those 2 weeks, just thinking about what a nightmare it is being a Spurs fan at the moment. And I think Romero is the epitome of our problem with it. I think he just drops off by half when he's about to play for Argentina, doesn't want to get injured, doesn't want to miss the game. Really, really frustrating. Okay, I'm going to go into some of the stuff that came out of the press conference with Ange Postecoglou. He was asked what went wrong today. He said, we didn't start the game well at all. It was all sort of passive, without the ball, with the ball. I felt we didn't get the tempo right or intensity right, and then we gave ourselves a mountain to climb. Second half, we were in the ascendancy and had opportunities, obviously, but we didn't do enough with them. Well, there he said it, didn't he? We were too passive, no intensity. This game, this sport, Ange ball, it's all about intensity, it's about drive, it's about ambition, it's about showing that you want it more than the opposition, and we didn't do it. I mean, he said we were in the ascendancy second half. I think basically what that means is, yeah, we had the ball because Ipswich stopped playing. They wanted to whack it long, they wanted to waste time. He's right, he said we didn't do enough with them. There were too many occasions where we took a shot when we should have played one more pass, and we didn't make the right final decision. Solanke's his shot in the last 2 minutes from the end, is a perfect example of that. Obviously, he's faced up with the keeper, so of course you're going to be tempted to shoot, but it's a very tight angle, and if he just scans, you'll see that Sonny's completely free in the 6-yard box. It was put to Ange that there's a bit of a theme about Spurs going behind. I think it's something like 12 out of the last 14 we've gone behind, something like that. I don't know, that might just be at home. He said they're all different sorts of scenarios leading to it. When we went behind against Villa, we were playing well. We weren't playing well today. So you've got to look at an isolation today. It was a different scenario for me. I don't think it was anything like last time. We gave ourselves too much of a deficit to try to overcome. Obviously, second half, we had the opportunities, but we should never have been in that position. No, we shouldn't. And we were in that position because the team were complacent. They thought they were going to roll them over. They were thinking about the international break. And they allowed Ipswich to work harder and play better than us. Ange obviously mentioned us having been passive, and journalists followed up on that. He said, look, that's down to me. That's my responsibility, the inconsistency we're having this year. Ultimately, it comes down to me and my approach, and something I need to try and fix and see if I can help the players in that area. I want to ask you guys something. Let me know in the comments. Quite a lot of fans this season have been saying, I don't care about the league, I only care about cups. Now, these aren't decisions you can make in reality. You can't say, Ange can't say, it doesn't matter that we don't beat Ipswich because we're still in all the cups. But is this inconsistency for you? Is this potential of like a 10th place finish? Would that be enough for you if we won the League Cup, for instance? Would it be enough for you if we won the FA Cup? Would it be enough for you if we won the Europa League? For me, okay, if we won the Europa League and therefore we got in the Champions League through winning that trophy, then this would be enough. But I said it yesterday and I'll say it again. And I'd like to know what you think about this in the comments as well. What makes you think that when we can't put away a team like Ipswich at home, what makes you think that we're going to turn up if we even get to a semi-final or a final of a big competition, of a Europa League or an FA Cup? What makes you think that the players are going to turn up for that? I hope I'm wrong. I really do. And I hope it'll be that the motivation is there and the fan support will be raucous, and that's something that'll push the team on like it did against Man City in the Carabao Cup. But it's the mentality that's clearly still shaky in this squad and in this club as a whole. And Ange is trying to change it. He is. But he's going to need more time to change it from top to bottom, clearly, because we still rock up to games like this and just embarrass ourselves. So that's my worry when it comes to that kind of thing that you hear a lot from Spurs fans. It's like, I'm not bothered about the league this season. I just want us to win a trophy. Well, to win a trophy, you've got to be playing well and you've got to be in decent form, I think. I mean, maybe only Man United are the outliers when it comes to that in terms of last year's FA Cup. They beat Man City despite the fact they've been in dross form. But I don't know. It's hard to see after days like that. Ange was asked in the press conference if he thinks we're struggling to deal with the kind of Europa League Thursday, Sunday. He said, I shouldn't think so. I don't think so. If we were seeing that, we'd probably feel it more at the end of games, and we're not feeling it at the end of the games. We're finishing games strongly. We can't start games like that at this level and expect to overcome the gap that exists between us and the other teams. So frustrating, isn't it? So frustrating. We should be in third place now, enjoying these 2 weeks, taking the piss out of all the other teams and their fans, but instead they're taking the piss out of us. I mentioned the time wasting, the professionalism from Ipswich. We saw it from Palace as well, didn't we? Ange was asked about it. He said, look, I think it's the way the Premier League is going. Actually, I'm really pleased with some of these comments he made here because I completely agree. He says it's pretty strategic now. You can almost look at your clock around the 20-minute mark and some player will go down. They'll come over to the coach and get instructions. They all will. He's talking about the team when that player goes down. It's funny. I always liked the Premier League because it wasn't like that. You would watch teams play in Europe and get frustrated by it, but now it's part of the game here as well. Nothing we can do about it. For us, if we want to mitigate those things because we don't do it and we want the game to be played differently, then we shouldn't give the opportunities for the opposition to do that. That's where it comes back to what I was saying about Ange's idealistic nature. Is it naive to think that we can do it in a different way to how Arsenal do it, in a more beautiful way? I think it might be. I have to say, when I think about Pete Pochettino Spurs, we were a nasty bunch as well. Sure, we had some beautiful players. We had Eriksen, we had Ali, we had Kane, but we had some biters and we had some people who went into tacklers. Alderweireld, Vertonghen could go in. Dembele was a brute. Wanyama, when he came in, hard to shake off the ball. And we were professional as well. We knew how to waste time. We knew how to take professional fouls to stop teams from counter-attacking against us. And I think in this day and age, maybe you need to add a little bit of that grit to your idealistic, beautiful, forward-thinking nature. Let me know if you agree. Obviously, there were a couple of injury problems yesterday, second half. Pape Matar and Dominic Solanke. Andrew was asked about that. He said, I think Pape's all right. He got a bit of a knock. Dom jarred his knee. It was pretty sore, but he wanted to continue. Hopefully, it's nothing serious. Well, yeah, let's hope so, because Solanke is key, I think, to us having a good season because of his hold-up play. After the game, in classic fashion, some of the players came out and talked about their disappointment. Sonny said it was a very disappointing afternoon. We all have to take big responsibility. I just want to say sorry about the result. Pedro Porro said, as a team, we have to take responsibility for these results. We must come together to be better, and will now look forward to coming back stronger after the break. The effort you put in supporting us must be reflected in our effort on the pitch, and is something we will never take for granted. See you after the break. The problem is, Pedro, I'm not saying him particularly, but it looks like they do take it all for granted. They turn up for games against Ipswich at home when they've got an opportunity to go third and think it's just going to be easy, and they don't put in the effort. That is the epitome of taking it for granted, and that's what we're fed up with. And that stat is so ugly, isn't it? We failed to win our last 3 Premier League fixtures that came off the back of a midweek Europa League fixture, and we've lost 5 in a row going into an international break. I was going to go on and talk more about some more stuff with Spurs, but do you know what? I've done 20 minutes on this, and it's, there's not much more to talk about. It's just a devastating result. I'll be back tomorrow with some kind of more Spurs news-esque stuff, but very, very disappointing. And listen, I said it yesterday, I'll say it again today. These kind of games where we don't turn up and we're complacent, those players will get Ange Postecoglou the sack if they're not careful. It will be blamed on the manager first. If the fans start chanting Levy out, Levy will take his opportunity to pull the trigger. And I think Postecoglou is the right manager for us. I really do. But he's got to get the buy-in from the players, and that means 110% every single game, every single Premier League game, every single Europa League game, every single Carabao Cup and FA Cup game. And there have just been too many occasions this season where we've been off it by 10, 15%. And it embarrasses us. It makes us look embarrassing as a fan base as well. Okay, guys, thank you so much for watching and listening. Please do give the video a like if you haven't already. Press subscribe for daily Tottenham Hotspur content, and try and find a way to enjoy your Monday. Difficult though, isn't it? Come on, you Spurs.